So welcome, everyone. As Justin said, my name is Christina Koch, and I'm one of the research computing facilitators that's part of the OSG Research Facilitation team. Very excited to be back at this call. I haven't been able to be here for a while to share about the Open Science Pool and bringing the computing capacity of the Open Science Pool to researchers at your campus or your institution. So I'm joined today by two of my four other colleagues. Shomek Islam and Rachel Lombardi are on the call. And so feel free to say hi to them in the chat. Also feel free as we go along to ask questions in the chat or raise your hand if you have a question. Also try to pause so that it isn't just me talking the whole time, but we make sure to address any questions or things that you want to know that come up as I go along. And Shomek and Rachel can also help. If I don't see questions as they're happening, we'll bring those to my attention to make sure that they're answered. And with that, very briefly, who are we? So the facilitation team, the rest of the OSG team, we are members of the OSG Consortium, which provides computational and data capacity to researchers of all kinds from all over, as long as they're affiliated with academic, government, nonprofit institutions. And what this means specifically for you, what we're going to focus on today is how we provide a place, the Open Science Pool or OSPool, for running computations and the assistance and guidance to help you use it effectively. So that's going to be the bulk of the presentation today, is OSPool centric. But I also want to highlight that we are more than just a bunch of computers, right, out there in the world. We also take really seriously trying to build community and connect with people and share ideas, very much in the spirit of the researcher-facing track. How can we partner with folks and problem solve together? So I'll give a quick highlight. Well, there'll be more information about these events later in the presentation, but two upcoming events that we would love to see people at are a conference that we're putting on in July, Throughput Computing 2024, and a week-long summer school in Madison in August. So stay tuned for more information about those later in the presentation. So that's what we do. So let's start with some quick facts about the OSPool and maybe knock out some initial questions that you might have about what it is and what it's good for. So the OSPool provides computing capacity for a wide range of research computing needs. So you see the list of domains here, everything from biology to physical sciences to statistics. There's a really broad range of domains, computing problems that have run on the OSPool and used our computing capacity. And so a few questions that you might have. Who can use it? The answer is anybody who is at a US-based academic, nonprofit, government institution, or a US-based project that might have international collaborators. If the project is based in the US, its members can use the OSPool. What does it cost? So it's completely open. There's no required proposal process, no allocation, and no fees for use. What can we use it for? So I already talked about some research examples, but there's other aspects of sort of the research computing enterprise that can also be run on the OSPool, teaching, training, project work, technology development, and we'll hopefully be able to highlight some of these examples as we move through the rest of the presentation. And finally, is there help? Am I on my own if I want to use the OSPool? The answer is no. So the facilitation team that you saw on the first slide, we're here to help provide guidance, strategize, problem solve, troubleshoot as you or people at your campus are trying to get started using the OSPool. So we'll go into more detail about exactly what the OSPool is and how to get started and what's a good fit in the rest of the presentation. But what I want people to start thinking about now is, where might you fit in the information we're about to present? Are you a researcher or working with researchers whose work has changed, where they have new kinds of data, new computational methods, where they want to scale up and they need something different or more? Are you an instructor or a trainer? There you want to either teach core skills or add computational examples to some kind of domain curriculum? Are you someone who's in more of a leadership role and you just want to talk to other people who are in this space and see what's possible? So as we go along, maybe try, keep thinking about where might I fit in all this information that I'm going to present? How could this support me in my role and potentially solve problems that I have? So that's kind of the quick overview. I'm going to go into the next two sections and then pause for questions, because I think a lot of initial questions will hopefully be answered by the first main chunk of the presentation here. So you are a researcher or you're supporting researchers, and you want to get access to the OSPool. What do you do? So you request an account using the link that's on this slide. There's a little form you fill out. It shouldn't take long. We don't want it to be an arduous process to fill out. That will fire off an email to us, the facilitation team, and we'll schedule an orientation meeting to talk to you about what you want to do. What does this mean for your research, your science, or the people you support? As many of us, I think, are in support roles, not doing research ourselves. We'll talk a little bit about high-throughput computing and the OSPool, a lot of content that you'll get from this presentation today, and some specifics for getting started. What should you do next based on your particular situation or context to make progress in using the OSPool? And then we'll follow up with ways to get ongoing help and finish creating your account. So that's it. That's the process. Fill out the form, meet with us, and you should be good to go. If you don't even want to do that, but you want to get started right away, we have a service called OSPool Notebooks, which are essentially a Jupyter-based interface to a login node or access point. And if you click on this link, which hopefully one of my colleagues can put in the chat if people want to try it out, you click sign in with CI logon, you use your institutional ID or an org ID or GitHub, and then you should get these server options. And when you start them, you get a little Jupyter environment. If you don't already have an account with us associated with the ID you used for the authentication, it's actually just going to spin up a temporary access point or login node with a generic user and a little test temporary pool of computation capacity attached. So you can try submitting jobs in this kind of sandbox environment. If you do have an account with us on one of our access points, like where you could log in with SSH on the terminal, then this will take you to a Jupyter environment that is actually accessing and showing your files on the access point. And when you submit jobs, either from a terminal or from a bash notebook, they would be running on the OSPool. So that's another option for access. And the previous one, the guest account, is something that we've had people use for training, for example, and just trying things out. So that's how you can get access. A full account, fill out the form, meet with us. If you want to just try things out through this Jupyter interface, you don't even need to do that. You can just click on the link and this will appear. Okay. So now let's say I have access, but what have I gotten myself into? What do I have access to? What is the Open Science Pool, or what we've been calling the OSPool? So to explain, I'm going to tell a little bit of a story. So I think many of us are on campuses where this has happened, where we have researchers, they need computing. And so, through impassioned pleas to the administration or a lot of creative grant writing or whatever, we've somehow come up with the resources to create some kind of local cluster for users on our campus to use for their work. And the OSPool comes out of this question: what if these resources are not being used 100% all the time? And we could get some use out of the unused portions, whatever is idle. What if those idle resources were pooled together in essentially a virtual cluster and anybody could use it? Not just researchers at my institution, but researchers at other institutions. So that is the OSPool. The OSPool is bringing together unused, extra, some dedicated. There's a whole different variety of sources of computing capacity that are being contributed, but different institutions are contributing bits and pieces of their clusters, and it's all being brought together into this pool of resources that we call the Open Science Pool, or OSPool. So to run work on it, you're going to do very much the same process as any other cluster in some ways, where you start on your computer, you log into some kind of login node, what we call an access point. And as you just saw, you can use a Jupyter interface for that, or you can use your sort of traditional terminal SSH. And then you submit jobs. The scheduler we use for job submission on the access points we run, and that's kind of baked into this whole infrastructure, is the HT Condor software suite. So you'll see that crop up in future slides as well. So that's what the OSPool is. Once those jobs are submitted, they go out to what we call execution points. So those would be the pieces of computing that are being shared by the different OSPool members. And so this is a map of, it might be from a couple months ago, so it's not 100% up to date, but it's pretty close. All these stars, I believe, represent institutions that are contributing computing capacity to the Open Science Pool. So you can see it's a lot of institutions all over the US. And so that's our primary service. I mean, that's what I'm talking about today. Along with the Open Science Pool, we support these access points or login nodes. So people can contact us and we can create accounts and they can submit jobs to the OSPool. And alongside the computing capacity that's available, there's also a network of data servers, data origins and caches for data delivery across this distributed computing network called the Open Science Data Federation, or OSDF. So if you get an account on one of our access points, not only are you getting, are you going to be able to submit jobs to the OSPool, but you'll be able to use the Open Science Data Federation for the necessary data movement that might need to happen for your jobs. So I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of just the scale of what's possible. But I felt like I needed to throw in one slide here that we have been going through a name change over the past few years. The genesis of the OSPool and previous grants and what have you, the name was Open Science Grid. And you'll still see it around, and it's never going to fully go away. And so if you see that, that's our past, I guess, and some of our present. But we've sort of fine-tuned exactly what we mean when we talk about the Open Science Grid, or OSG. Often when people say OSG, what they mean is the Open Science Pool. They mean this pool of shared capacity for researchers to run their jobs. But you may also hear OSG Consortium, OSG Services. A lot of our funding comes from an NSF grant called the Partnership to Advance Throughput Computing, or PATH. So just if you see any of these terms around, they aren't referring to exactly the same thing, but you could talk to us. Talk to us if you have questions, and we will be able to connect you to the right. If it's not quite the right thing, we'll be able to connect you. So. So real quick, before I wrap up this section about like what is the OSPool and how does it work? This is a kind of the scale that we think about things. In the last 365 days, so last year, we run a little more than 150 million jobs, have a couple hundred users, 100 or so groups that are active, transferred a lot of files. And the fields of science are dominated by our old friends, physics, astronomy, and chemistry. But I think it's a pretty good showing from biological sciences, engineering, and math in terms of the fields of science that are doing work. And I really like this plot of the institutions where there are groups that have run work on the OSPool, because there is a big variety. There's some smaller schools, bigger schools, state schools. So this really is something that can be used by anyone. And to drill down into what this can look like for one kind of the capacity that's available for one project, this is one of our biggest users. I will qualify. Not everyone is running at this scale. But Eric Wright's lab at the University of Pittsburgh is a big OSPool user. And so you can see here in the past year, they've submitted and run something like 27 million jobs. So they're really cooking on the OSPool and doing work around, I think, microbial resistance and microbial sequencing stuff. So a lot of simulations, a lot of data analysis. So I'm going to pause there. We've talked about how to get access, what the OSPool is, and I want to talk next about like what you can actually do and what's supported or not supported on the OSPool. But I'll pause here. Rachel, Shoemaker, are there any questions that
Yes, we do. Oh, go ahead, Rachel.
Yes. Rebecca had a great question, and I'll let you elaborate on a little bit, is if this resource could be used to help students and researchers during their routine and emergency maintenances. So basically, she's looking to see what resources their users can use when their local systems are down.
Yeah.
And I had mentioned that it's to be able to access, our full system, ideally researchers would have an account, but we do have many researchers that have accounts on their local cluster and on our system as well, so that if their local cluster does go down, they have us ready to go and ready to use.
Yeah. I think Rachel's and Shomik's answer is pretty much what I would say is, because there's, as with any system, there's a little bit of startup cost to get the full scope of the advantages of the OSPool, creating an account, setting up your jobs. It's not something you could just like switch over to. One option would be if you were running a local high throughput computing system with your own access points, people are submitting jobs with Condor, it's possible to integrate so then you can also send jobs to the OSPool. And in that case, if your local system, everything but the access point went down, people could still have the option of running in the OSPool. But that assumes, so we actually have that scenario in Madison, where I am physically located and also support campus, where if our whole high throughput system went down, but our login nodes or access points were up, people could still use the OSG, the OSPool specifically. That's more of like a long-term, I think, strategic plan, though, investment in terms of what you're trying to do. And
then one last question. Do you support Globus file transfers to get data to your data caches?
Jim, that's a good question. I would agree with Shomik's answer, which is no, but also watch this space. There's another, I didn't put it on these slides, but another project we're closely tied with is developing and improving the technology that supports the Open Science Data Federation. So it does plug into more kind of data sources and is more universally useful in other contexts. So maybe ask us again in like 2 months and we might have a different answer. So I see the two questions that popped up, and these are great because this is what I want to talk about next. So I'm going to move forward and talk about what can I do on the Open Science Pool. So the ideal OSPool workload is jobs that are laptop sized, 1 core, couple gigabytes of RAM. Still, I think useful is things that are beefy desktop sized, where you start to get less benefit from using the OSPool is once you get into an individual job that's server sized or larger. So I saw the question, can you support MPI? I took out the slide that had that exact question, but the answer is yes, but not multi-node, right? We can support MPI that's running on a few cores on 1 server. And so the reason for that is kind of twofold. First, the model that we are assuming, the computational approach that we're assuming for running on the OSPool, sort of what's behind the columns of this chart, is that a problem is solvable with high throughput computing, meaning you want to run just a ton of jobs that are small to medium in size. This wouldn't be an OSPool presentation, an HTC presentation, if we didn't trot out the world's largest cake. But it really is a perfect analogy for the mindset behind the kind of computing that we can best support, which is that you can solve a big problem by running a lot of small problems, and you don't need special hardware to do that. Those small problems can be run on sort of standard types of hardware, little bits and pieces, remember, that are being contributed. But if you're able to do all those little pieces, then the cumulative effect of what you're able to achieve is significant. So common examples of problems that are really thrive on the OSPool, let's say, are processing a bunch of independent data files. This covers a huge variety of domains, bioinformatics, anybody working with imaging data, audio text data, kind of like protein, data bank kind of files. The example we have on this slide, Russelin Larson, is someone we worked with at Utah State University, and she wanted to, do molecule docking or comparison for like this whole library of like proteins and compounds, and she did something like, as it says on the slide, 40 million of these docking runs, submitting millions of jobs in something like a month. And that's a very like classic, you can get a lot done in a short amount of time kind of use case. The other example is people that need to run many simulations, test many parameter combinations, do randomized analysis. And that's also a significant breadth of science domains. Statistics, anybody using statistical methods, that includes economics, physics, people doing kind of parameter studies, that's a lot of engineering, chemistry, materials science. So the example featured here, Matt Dorsey is at North Carolina State, and I think is just running like tons of simulations of different configurations of these colloids that their group researchers and how they self-assemble into materials. Millions and millions of jobs, and that's also a really good fit for the OSPool. So those are things to keep your eye out for. We think definitely not so much about specific domains, because all of these domains also have more, I think, traditional high performance needs. But like what are they doing computationally? Does it fit into this kind of many independent jobs model? And if so, then let's go. So what I want to highlight here is, because the OSPool is this geographically distributed kind of virtual cluster, there's some practical implications that I want to just mention so people know. And a lot of these go hand in hand with the idea of a high throughput computing approach. So first, using htcontrol to submit jobs, it is super easy to submit, maybe too easy sometimes, to submit and manage literally tens of thousands of jobs. So that's a great strength of our system, and we have a lot of resources to support them. Because the computers that are part of the OSPool don't belong to us, we have less control over how long individual jobs can run. It's possible that a resource will need to be reclaimed by its owner, and then your job will get interrupted. It'll stay in the queue and need to run again. Similarly, resources can come and go. So I can't tell you on a given day, oh, we have this many cores or GPUs available, because there will be some flux in the system. Because of how the pool is designed, it can be open. We don't have to charge. You can just use it because we don't have to own and manage these resources ourselves. And there are thousands of cores and GPUs, not thousands of GPUs, some GPUs available, on any given day. The other practical consideration I just want to throw in here is there's no shared file system. That's not something that makes sense with this model. And so we do a lot with data stage in, stage out. And as I mentioned, I think that's going to continue to grow. That's an area where we're going to have more and more features. And we don't really have modules in the traditional sense because we don't have a shared file system. So we do a lot of work with containers. So containers are A-OK on the OSPool. We're always happy to help people make them, figure out how to use them. And that's very much part of our mentality of what's supported. And then this is an OSPool talk, but I also felt sort of legally obligated. And this to share about the PATH facility. And this actually ties back to a question I saw in the chat about foreign pools. So I want to say that all the capacity in the OSPool, or most of it, is in the United States. There might be one site contributing to the OSPool that's like in Canada. I could double check. But in general, most of the OSPool capacity is the servers are living in the US. As part of the broader OSG consortium, there's actually other pools, virtual pools like the OSPool out there that are dedicated to specific projects, run by those projects, accessible to members of those projects. So you see on this list, CMS, this is one of the big projects at the Large Hadron Collider at CERN. I would say Atlas, but they're not on here. IceCube, South Pole Physics Project. So some of these pools do have international participation. They have international members, but they're their own entities basically. So we don't support them. Those projects are self-sufficient in that way. So that kind of OSPool is US based for US researchers, supported by the OSG Research Facilitation team. One pool that's on here is the PATH pool or PATH facility. So this is actually a dedicated pool of resources that we also support. And it's designed for workflows that are just a little too big for the OSPool. Maybe need more cores, maybe want to have a little bit more of a guarantee about how long you can run. So this is all great. The trade-off is you have to have NSF funding. So it's not quite as open as the Open Science Pool. There is a little bit of a proposal process. But if this is you, if you're like, oh, I have this high throughput problem, but my jobs really do need like 16 cores per job, but I have like 5,000 of them, please talk to us and we will get you set up if we can make the NSF funding connection work. So interlude over. Questions about or anything else about what's possible, what kind of jobs you can run? I see that Shomik has mentioned how many GPUs we normally see, which is anywhere from 60 to 100. Any other questions? Thanks. I should.
Christina, there is a question that tries to relate OSG to some other resources out there on the national scene. In particular, Paul is asking about the ecosystem for research networking. If I understand it right, Paul, I've seen a note about this a few days ago. It's more of a conference that perhaps brings in together various players like Access or maybe CaRC or things like that. Maybe if you can clarify this, but in either case, maybe say kind of how OSG differs from other things that or other computing resources that people can access through the various national services.
Yeah. So yeah, we have an interesting relationship with Access. So you can get an Access allocation and convert it to like OSPool credits. I have done this. And then contact us and we can create a project and you can sort of like use your Access allocation on the OSPool. You don't have to. You can come in through the Access pathway, or you can just contact us directly and get an account. So those, so we are, I would say we're not, yeah, we're like some of the other Access resources in that, you know, we're meant to serve kind of a national audience. Like I know you had Jetstream on last month and might have some other providers coming on soon. So I think that's maybe one similarity. What we offer is obviously what a lot of the different Access resource providers offer is very unique and different. So our particular thing is the high throughput computing and kind of the distributed piece. So that's probably our strongest connection with other kind of national stuff. And, you know, we've gone to PERC before and we're here now. And so we want to maintain those connections to the community, but we don't have any like formal like partnerships that I know of right now. Does that answer the question? We'll assume so. Okay, there's one more question in the chat, which I am going to answer, which is, can we support licensed software? This is also on the slide that I took out. And the answer is it depends, which Rachel has capably explained in the chat. If it's the kind of license where you just need to sign that you're not going to share it with anybody, and then they just send you the binaries. We've had people, for example, run Rosetta successfully on the OSPool. If it's the kind of license where you need a certain number of licenses to even run, and you have to check them out from the license server, you're not going to be able to use the full capacity of the OSPool because you'll be limited by your licenses, not your computing access. And logistically, that's again, distributed, running on different computers, needing to check into a central license server is logistically a lot more complicated. So a lot of it really, really, really depends on the type of license and what's available. MATLAB you can do if you can, because you can compile it and run it without a license, just as a tip. Okay, Rachel Shomek, did I get most of the questions?
I believe so. Yes, I believe so. We will let you know.
All right.
No.
Well, in the interest of time, we will continue marching on. So now is where I want to pivot a little bit. I've talked about the computing capacity that's available through the OSPool, how to get access, what it is, what you can do. Hopefully, in broad strokes, you have a sense of when using the OSPool might be a good idea for you, your campus, others. So now I want to turn back to what I mentioned at the beginning, that we offer computing capacity, but we're also trying to connect with people around the practice of high throughput computing specifically. So we've gone to other events and we host our own. And so this event coming up in July is the second time we've run this particular incarnation of this conference, Throughput Computing 2024. It's going to have OSPool, OSG content, HD Condor content. We're literally hammering out the like general schedule right now, so registration should open very soon. You can see last year's schedule if you click the link below, and if you really want to connect with people, connect with the OSG team, the dHTC Condor team, this is a great way to rub elbows, have those hallway conversations, and enjoy some beverages in one of the most beautiful places to be in the world in the summer, in my opinion. So that's coming up, and strongly encourage people to check it out. It is 5 days, but you don't need to come for all 5 of the days. It is priced per day so that you can, once we have the general schedule up, you can look at it and pick which days you want to come. Talk to us if you're like, I'd like to come, but what do you think would be most useful? Happy to help in that area. The other big thing that's coming up this summer that I mentioned at the beginning is the OSG school. So this is a week-long summer school for researchers and research staff. So you don't have to be like a grad student to come to this. If you're supporting researchers, we want you to apply. And there's a lot of hands-on practice activities, and a real emphasis on getting real jobs running, like real research, not just little, test examples. So applications for that are open now. So do take a look at the website, see if this might be for you, for someone you support, for someone you know about. Our best applicants come through word of mouth, especially researchers who hear it from people like yourselves, who they trust their recommendation. So if you think this is a good fit for someone, please share. This is a good deal. We cover travel, hotel, and attendance. So this is also a really good space for research groups that are maybe new to computing and don't have like a huge budget for going to a big conference and getting training. If this is a good fit for them, they should definitely check it out. Applications close April 1st, I want to say. So come join us in Madison in August. Alongside those 2 big events in the summer, we do have regular spaces for people to connect with the facilitation team. So we recently restarted our OSG campus meetup. That's a weekly session. Right now we're on a 1st and 3rd weeks. We have a topic chosen in advance and then some discussion about it. The other weeks, it's more of like a drop-in if you have questions or want to chat with us. I just want to share, I haven't replied to a lot of the emails going to Campus Champions list or the People Network list, but there have definitely been things where I'm like, oh, yeah, we have experience with that. So I will try to be better about replying and inviting people to, if you just want to come and share about like, how do you help people build containers? Or what are the challenges of like accessing massive amount of data from S3 or using other data delivery tools? Like that's the kind of thing that I think we'd be happy to talk about. So that first option is a little more campus staff focused, whether you're contributing to the OSPool or trying to use it or recommend it. We also have a more user-focused office hours twice a week. That's more just drop in, talk to us, but you could go to either one of these. Anyone on this call could go to either one of these and get connected. Details in the final slide of how to actually connect. I think the last thing to consider, ways to sort of integrate with our community, is to share the resources we have for teaching and education. We've had people use the OSPool for classes and training, to provide hands-on computing experience, to work with real data. And if that wouldn't be possible on your students' laptops, something like the OSPool makes that possible. We support a class here at UW Madison with that each year. It's really rewarding. It's very fun. This could also be an option if you have multiple, like a more collaborative kind of teaching experience, and getting everybody accounts at the cluster at one institution is going to be a headache. You could just use the OSPool instead, which is also something someone has done with us. So the link on this page has a nice overview of kind of recommended steps of how you might engage with us around teaching and offering training. So definitely check that out. And this sums up some of what I've already talked about. In addition to our summer events, we have monthly trainings. And in addition to kind of the notebooks, we have our online documentation and some YouTube videos if you want to check things out more asynchronously. All right. I see things in the chat. Okay. Mostly links. All right. So I'm going to proceed and wrap up because we are almost at time. So I want to end on this note that the reason for all this, the computing capacity and the community and connecting with each other and solving problems together, is to make new things possible for people. So this is a recent, I think we just got these people started like a month or two ago. And they have, they're at NOAA and have a bunch of sonar data, and to make it more machine learning training friendly, they needed to convert the files. So in some sense, not a complex computational problem, but a big one because they had such a large amount of data. And they were able to implement it on the OSPool and kind of do a test run where they processed a bunch of files. And the OSPool, besides just sort of the capacity to do that, gave them, what I really like is a statement at the bottom, to fail and try again, sort of to experiment and try things, see if it would work, what doesn't work, fix it, try again. So I personally, I want to help, the grad student who otherwise might not be able to finish their thesis, and an organization like this, so that they can take what they already have and make it even more potentially impactful and transformative. In this case, by prepping it for machine learning and sort of downstream research workflows. So that's the mission. We want to help people be able to do new research. We can't help everybody, and we support this particular flavor of high throughput computing. We have the characteristics of the OSPool designed the way it is, as this sort of virtual cluster. But if that's for you or people you work with, please connect with us, get an account, come to our office hours or our campus meetup, come to these events, either in the summer or on the monthly trainings we have. We're trying to share about these in the CaRC People Network list so people know. And yeah, looking forward to, hopefully, I recognize a lot of you on this call, and I know we've worked with a lot of you to this point, and looking forward to continuing that and working with more of you moving forward. So with that, I will take final questions. And the slides are available.
They are, and we have them shared in the call doc. They're there. Perfect. And they're also in the chat up at the top. So,
there is like a lot of links on these pages. I just wanted to make sure the information is all there, but you can go back and click on things at your leisure.
Yeah.
So I think Rachel and Shomik did a great job of answering questions as they came up and bringing them up to me. Is there anything, Rachel, Shomik, that you feel like we didn't fully address? Or are there any other questions that folks have before we wrap up for today?
Actually, one little detail from earlier. Are there any Canadian institutions contributing to the OSPool? Yes, I did find one. So yes. And then there are some that are contributing data capacity
yes.
as well.
Okay,
but
thanks
that
for checking,
is
Rachel.
it. Yes, that is all that I can. I think that's all the questions answered. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody, for being here today.